Hello. It's good to see you. Today we are going to be reading about breakfast cereal. I have two things here that I wanted to read to you. The first is the Wikipedia entry for breakfast cereal. We're going to go through that. It's quite a few pages. And then after that, I would like to read to you a short history of cereal. And this was from an article that I found online. And so we're going to read a short history of cereal as well. So we have several pages. Now, if you've ever read a Wikipedia article, they all kind of have the same format. Now, there really aren't any pictures to look at, so don't worry about trying to look at anything. I think this is basically the only picture that we're going to see, and this is a presentation of flaked breakfast cereal and raspberries, along with orange juice, black tea, and a slice of lemon right there, and that's it. You're not really going to see any other pictures. Let me just check. Not really. Here we have a picture, an old picture of a cornflakes advertisement. And there's a bowl of Fruit Loops, but I'm pretty sure you know what they look like. And the second part doesn't have any pictures at all. So don't worry about focusing on any pictures or the visual appeal of this video, because it's really just going to be me pointing with this little pointer and reading these things to you. And we'll start here with the generic overview. That's this section. It looks like we have at least 4 paragraphs. Breakfast cereal. Cereal, formally termed breakfast cereal and further categorized as cold cereal or warm cereal, is a traditional breakfast food made from processed cereal grains. It is traditionally eaten as part of breakfast or a snack food, primarily in Western societies. Although warm cereals like porridge and grits have the longest history, ready-to-eat cold cereals appeared around the late 19th century and are most often mixed with milk, traditionally cow's milk, but can also be paired with yogurt instead or eaten plain. Fruit or nuts are sometimes added. Many cereals are produced via extrusion. Some companies promote their products for the health benefits that come from eating oat-based and high-fiber cereals. In the United States, cereals are often fortified with vitamins, but can still lack many of the vitamins needed for a healthy breakfast. A significant proportion of cereals have a high sugar content. Sugar cereals, or sugary cereals in common parlance. Some cereals are marketed primarily towards children, feature a cartoon mascot, and may contain a toy or prize. Between 1970 and 1998, the number of different types of breakfast cereals in the U.S. more than doubled, from about 160 to around 340. As of 2012, there were roughly 4,945 different types, estimate based on the mass customization of online shopping. In this highly competitive market, cereal companies have developed an ever-increasing number of varieties and flavors. Some are flavored like dessert or candy. Although many plain wheat, oat, and corn-based cereals exist, many other varieties are highly sweetened, while some brands include freeze-dried fruit as a sweet element. The breakfast cereal industry has gross profit margins of 40 to 45%, 90% penetration in some markets, and has had steady and continued growth throughout its history. All right, then we move into the background of cereal. Cereal grains, namely porridge and especially oatmeal, became an important breakfast component in North America. Barley was a common grain used, though other grains and yellow peas could be used. In many modern cultures, porridge is still eaten as a breakfast dish. Early America. Native Americans had found a way to make ground corn palatable, later called grits, from the Old English word griot, I don't know how you say that, meaning gravel. Hominy was another preparation. While this became a staple in the southern U.S., grits never gained a hold in the northern states. Food reformers in the 19th century called for cutting back on excessive meat consumption at breakfast. They explored numerous vegetarian alternatives. Late in the century, the Seventh-day Adventists based in Michigan made these food reforms part of their religion, and indeed non-meat breakfasts were featured in their sanitariums and led to new breakfast cereals. The next section is cooked oatmeal. All right, here we have a Quaker Oats advertisement from around 1900. Ferdinand Schumacher, a German immigrant, began the cereals revolution in 1854 with a hand oats grinder in the back room of a small store in Akron, Ohio. His German Mills American Oatmeal Company was the nation's first commercial oatmeal manufacturer. He marketed the product locally as a substitute for breakfast pork. Improved production technology, steel cutters, porcelain rollers, and improved hullers, combined with an influx of German and Irish immigrants, quickly boosted sales and profits. In 1877, Schumacher adopted the Quaker symbol, the first registered trademark for a breakfast cereal. The acceptance of quote-unquote horse food for human consumption encouraged other entrepreneurs to enter the industry. Henry Parsons Crowell started operations in 1882 and John Robert Stewart in 1885. Crowell cut costs by consolidating every step of the processing: grading, cleaning, hulling, cutting, rolling, packaging, and shipping in one factory operating at Ravenna, Ohio. Stewart operated mills in Chicago and Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Stewart and Crowell combined in 1885 and initiated a price war. After a fire at his mill in Akron, Schumacher joined Stewart and Crowell to form the Consolidated Oatmeal Company. The American Cereal Company, Quaker Oats, but see below, created a cereal made from oats in 1877, manufacturing the product in Akron, Ohio. Separately, in 1888, a trust or holding company combined the nation's 7 largest mills into the American Cereal Company, using the Quaker Oats brand name. By 1900, technology, entrepreneurship, and the man in Quaker garb, a symbol of plain honesty and reliability, gave Quaker Oats a national market and annual sales of $10 million. equivalent to $330 million today. Early in the 20th century, the Quaker Oats Company, formed in 1901 to replace the American Cereal Company, jumped into the world market. Schumacher, the innovator, Stewart, the manager and financial leader, and Crowell, the creative merchandiser, advertiser, and promoter, doubled sales every decade. Alexander P. Anderson's steam pressure method of shooting rice from guns created puffed rice and puffed wheat. Crowell's intensive advertising campaign in the 1920s and 1930s featured promotions with such celebrities as Babe Ruth, Max Spear, and Shirley Temple. Sponsorship of the popular Rin Tin Tin and Sergeant Preston of the Yukon radio shows aided the company's expansion during the Depression. Meat rationing during World War II boosted annual sales to $90 million, equivalent to $1.4 billion today. And by 1956, sales topped $277 million, or $2.8 billion today. By 1964, the firm sold over 200 products, grossed over $500 million, $4.4 billion today, and claimed that 8 million people ate Quaker Oats each day. Expansion included the acquisition of Aunt Jemima Mills Company in 1926, which continues as a leading brand of pancake mixes and syrup, the sport drink Gatorade in 1983, and in 1986, the Golden Grain Company, producers of Rice-A-Roni, canned lunch food. In 2001, Quaker Oats was itself bought out by PepsiCo. And then we move into early developments under the history section of this Wikipedia entry. The first cold breakfast cereal, granula, not the same as granola, was invented in the United States in 1863 by James Caleb Jackson, operator of Our Home on the Hillside, which was later replaced by the Jackson Sanatorium in Dansville, New York. The cereal never became popular due to the inconvenient necessity of tenderizing the heavy bran and graham nuggets by soaking them overnight. George H. Hoyt created Wheatina circa 1879 during an era when retailers would typically buy cereal, the most popular being cracked wheat, oatmeal, and cerealine in barrel lots, and scoop it out to sell by the pound to customers. Hoyt, who had found a distinctive process of preparing wheat for cereal, sold his cereal in boxes, offering consumers a more sanitary and consumer-friendly option. We have Kellogg and Battle Creek, Michigan. Packaged breakfast cereals were considerably more convenient than a product that had to be cooked, and as a result of this convenience and clever marketing, they became popular. Battle Creek, Michigan was a center both of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and of innovation in the ready-to-eat cereal industry, and indeed, the church had a substantial impact on the development of cereal goods through the person of John Harvey Kellogg, 1851 to 1943. son of an Adventist factory owner in Battle Creek, Kellogg was encouraged by his church to train in medicine at Bellevue Hospital Medical College in New York City in 1875. After graduating, he became medical superintendent at the Western Health Reform Institute in Battle Creek, established in 1866 by the Adventists to offer their natural remedies for illness. Many wealthy industrialists came to Kellogg's sanitarium for recuperation and rejuvenation. A sanitarium and a sanatorium are not the same thing. In Battle Creek Sanitarium, guests found fresh air, exercise, rest, hydrotherapy, a strict vegetarian diet, and abstinence from alcohol, tobacco, coffee, and tea. They were accustomed to breakfasts of ham, eggs, sausages, fried potatoes, hot biscuits, hot cakes or pancakes, and coffee. To supplement the center's vegetarian regimen, Kellogg experimented with granola. Soon afterwards, he began to experiment with wheat, resulting in a lighter, flakier product. In 1891, he acquired a patent, and then in 1895, he launched the Corn Flakes brand, which overnight captured a national market. Soon there were 40 rival manufacturers in the Battle Creek area. His brother, William K. Kellogg, 1860 to 1951, worked for him for many years until in 1906 he broke away, bought the rights to Corn Flakes, and set up the Kellogg Toasted Corn Flake Company. William Kellogg discarded the health food concept, opting for heavy advertising and commercial taste appeal. Later, his signature on every package became the company trademark. Charles W. Post. The second major innovator in the cereal industry was Charles W. Post, a salesman who was admitted to Kellogg's sanitarium as a patient in the late 1800s. While there, he grew deeply impressed with their all-grain diet. Upon his release, he began experimenting with grain products, beginning with an all-grain coffee substitute called Postum. In 1898, he introduced grape nuts, the concentrated cereal with a nutty flavor containing neither grapes nor nuts. Good business sense, determination, and powerful advertising produced a multi-million-dollar fortune for Post in a few years. After his death, his company acquired the Jell-O Company in 1925, Baker's Chocolate in 1927, Maxwell House Coffee in 1928, and Bird's Eye Frozen Foods in 1929. In 1929, the company changed its name to General Foods. In 1985, Philip Morris Tobacco Company bought General Foods for $5.6 billion, equivalent to $14.1 billion today, and merged it with its Kraft division. Because of Kellogg and Post, the city of Battle Creek, Michigan is nicknamed the cereal capital of the world. Muesli. Muesli is a breakfast cereal based on uncooked rolled oats, fruits, and nuts. It was developed around 1900 by the Swiss physician Maximilian Bircher-Benner for patients in his hospital. It is available in a packaged dry form such as Alpen or Familia Swiss Muesli, or it can be made fresh. United Kingdom. In 1902, Force Wheat Flakes became the first ready-to-eat breakfast cereal introduced into the United Kingdom. The cereal and the Sunny Jim character achieved wide success in Britain, at its peak in 1930 selling 12.5 million packages in 1 year. National advertising. Kellogg began the breakfast cereal marketing and introduced the first in-box prize in the early 1900s. Quaker Oats entered the market with puffed rice and wheat berries it had introduced at the 1904 World Fair. With raw grains shot with hot compressed air from tubes, popping up to many times their size. They were marketed as a revolution in food science. In the 1920s, national advertising in magazines and radio broadcasts played a key role in the emergence of the fourth big cereal manufacturer, General Mills. In 1921, James Ford Bell, president of a Minneapolis wheat milling firm, began experimenting with rolled wheat flakes. After tempering, steaming, cracking wheat, and processing it with syrup, sugar, and salt, it was prepared in a pressure cooker for rolling and then dried in an electric oven. By 1925, Wheaties had become the breakfast of champions. In 1928, 4 milling companies consolidated as the General Mills Company in Minneapolis. The new firm expanded packaged food sales with heavy advertising, including sponsorship of radio programs such as Skippy, Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy, and baseball games. Jack Dempsey, Johnny Weissmuller, and others verified the Breakfast of Champions slogan. By 1941, Wheaties had won 12% of the cereal market. Experiments with the puffing process produced Kix, a puffed corn cereal, and Cheerios, a puffed oats cereal. Further product innovation and diversification brought total General Mills sales to over $500 million annually, 18% in packaged foods, by the early 1950s. In 1944, General Foods launched a marketing campaign for grape nuts, focusing on nutritional importance of breakfast. Sugar cereals. After World War II, the big breakfast cereal companies, now including General Mills, who entered the market in 1924 with Wheaties, increasingly started to target children. The flour was refined to remove fiber, which at the time was considered to undermine digestion and absorption of nutrients, and sugar was added to improve the flavor for children. The new breakfast cereals began to look starkly different from their ancestors. Ranger Joe, the first pre-sweetened breakfast cereal of sugar-coated puffed wheat or rice, was introduced in the U.S. in 1939. Kellogg's Sugar Smacks, created in 1953, had 56% sugar by weight. Different mascots were introduced, such as the Rice Krispies elves, and later pop icons like Tony the Tiger and the Trix Rabbit. Granola. In the 1960s, the modern version of granola was invented and popularized. It evolved from a product called granula, similar to grape nuts, to the recognizable modern form involving, at a minimum, sweetened toasted oats, but also possibly dried fruit, puffed rice, nuts, or chocolate. Modern cereal. Over 2016 to 2017, Americans purchased 3.1 billion boxes of cereal, mostly as ready-to-eat cold cereal. In a $9.8 billion cereal market, cold cereal purchases were 88% of the total, 12% for hot cereals, with the overall cereal market declining due to reduced consumption of sugar and dairy products. Kellogg's and General Mills each had 30% of the market share for cold cereals. Honey Nut Cheerios was the leading cold cereal. Processing of grains. The processing of grains helps to separate the bran and cereal germ, but may remove nutrients such as B vitamins and dietary fiber. Processing is the modification of a grain or mixture of grains, usually taking place in a facility remote from the location where the product is eaten. This distinguishes breakfast cereals from foods made from grains modified and cooked in the place where they are eaten. Nutritional fortification. Breakfast cereals may be fortified with dietary minerals and vitamins. For example, breakfast cereal in Canada may be fortified with specific micronutrient amounts per 100 grams of cereal, including thiamine 2.0 milligrams, niacin 4.8 milligrams, and vitamin B6 0.6 milligrams, among others. Gluten-free cereals. Breakfast cereal companies make gluten-free cereals which are free of any gluten-containing grains. These cereals are targeted for consumers who suffer from gluten-related disorders as celiac disease, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and wheat allergy, among others. Some companies that produce gluten-free cereals include Kellogg's, General Mills, Nature's Path, and Arrowhead Mills. Warm cereals. Most warm cereals can be classified as porridges in that they consist of cereal grains which are soaked in hot water, cooked and or boiled to soften them and make them palatable. Sweeteners such as brown sugar, honey, or maple syrup are often added either by the manufacturer during cooking or before eating. Porridge is especially popular in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and England. Porridge became important in Scotland due to the freezing winters. The Scottish people prefer porridge to be made with only water and salt, while others prefer more creamier substances to be added. Wales had a perfect climate for cultivating oats, making porridge common in Welsh households. Ireland mixes porridge with whiskey as a cure for the common cold, while England references the dish to the royal family and their traditions. Canada. Common hot cereals in parts of Canada include oatmeal, cream of wheat and cream of rice, and Red River cereal. These hot cereals are typically served with maple syrup or brown sugar and milk or cream. Yogurt is also added to Red River cereal. Many Canadians also enjoy cereals similar to those in the United States market. China. In China, porridges such as rice congee or those made with other ingredients, including cornmeal or millet, are often eaten for breakfast. Eating breakfast cereal has become more important in China and specifically Hong Kong due to the increase of work and decrease in time. Greece. In Greece, cornmeal is poured into boiling milk to create a cereal of thick consistency, which is often served to young children. The cereal production in Greece has recently declined. Ireland. Oatmeal is a common breakfast in Ireland. Oatmeal and porridge have been consumed in Ireland since the 19th century. Russia. In Russia, a breakfast is kasha, a porridge of buckwheat, farina, or other grains. Kasha is found throughout much of Eastern Europe, including Poland and Croatia. Russia does not value breakfast cereals as much as other places. Most instances of cereal consumption is due to the desire for weight loss. South Africa. Pap is a porridge used in a variety of meals eaten throughout the day. In the Afrikaans culture of descendants of Dutch farmers and French Huguenots, it is usually sprinkled with sugar and then eaten with milk. It can be made to a very stiff consistency so that it forms what could be described as a softish, lumpy crumble, or a more creamy porridge consistency. It is generally made from maize meal and is sold under various brand names. Tasty wheat is made into a creamy wheat-based porridge. Porridge brands unique to South Africa include Jungle Oats and Bokimo Maltabella, made from malted sorghum. In other parts of Africa, it is known as Ugali, Bota, and Banku or Macau. I didn't pronounce that correctly, I'm sure. I apologize. United Kingdom. Scotland is famous for its consumption of oats. In Northern Ireland, the company White's has been milling oats in Tandragee since 1841. England has incorporated porridge in their culture for centuries. Many of the different types of porridge were made specially for the royal family, including a type of porridge called pea porridge. This specific dish was made for King Richard II. Research. Consumption of breakfast cereal is under preliminary research for the potential to improve nutrition and affect chronic diseases. Regular breakfast cereal consumption is associated with less risk of being overweight or obese, and high-fiber breakfast cereals are associated with a lower risk of diabetes. And that is the end of the Wikipedia entry for breakfast cereals. We are now going to move into a short history of cereal. This is an article that may repeat some of the things that we have read in the Wikipedia section. There may be some duplication. A short history of cereal. An American invention. Breakfast cereal began as a digestive aid, acquired religious overtones, became a sugary snack, and now toggles between health food and sweet indulgence. Throughout that history, it has mirrored changes in the world beyond the breakfast table. Here are some highlights. Mid to late 19th century. In 1863, James Caleb Jackson, a religiously conservative vegetarian who ran a medical sanitarium in western New York, created a breakfast cereal from graham flour dough that was dried and broken into shapes so hard they needed to be soaked in milk overnight. He called it granula. John Harvey Kellogg, a surgeon who ran a health spa in Michigan, later made a version and called it granola. Using the same idea, a former Kellogg patient, C.W. Post, created grape nuts, which would become the first popular product to offer a discount coupon. 1900s. Kellogg and his younger brother, Will Keith Kellogg, had figured out how to make a flaked cereal they called Corn Flakes. The younger Kellogg added sugar and began mass marketing them, including the first in-box prize. Post developed a similar cereal called Elijah's Manna, which he later renamed Post Toasties after religious groups protested. 1910s. The Quaker Oats Company, which had acquired a method of forcing rice grains to explode under pressure, began marketing puffed rice and puffed wheat as a breakthrough in food science, calling them the first food shot from guns and the eighth wonder of the world. 1920s. A health clinician accidentally spilled a wheat bran mixture onto a hot stove, creating what would come to be called Wheaties. Its famous slogan, "Breakfast of Champions," would first appear on a billboard for a minor league baseball team in Minnesota in the 1930s. Rice Krispies, with its characters Snap, Crackle, and Pop, soon became a close rival. 1930s. The Ralston Purina Company introduced an early version of wheat Chex, calling it Shredded Ralston. It was intended to feed followers of Ralstonism, a strict racist social movement that included a belief in controlling the minds of others. The name Chex, a rice version and the first recipe for Chex Mix, would not arrive until the 1950s. And yes, that's Elizabeth Taylor on the 1950s box. 1940s. Cheerios appeared as Cheery Oats, but were quickly renamed. They would become the best-selling cereal in America, worth about $1 billion in sales in 2015. Honey Nut Cheerios, introduced by General Mills in 1979, is the brand's most popular version. 1950s. After World War II, cereal consumption increased with the advent of the baby boom, and sugar became a selling point. Kellogg's invented Frosted Flakes with its pitchman Tony the Tiger, and a new area of television advertising began. Tony shared mascot's duty for the brand with other characters, including Katie the Kangaroo, but they were later phased out. 1960s. Quisp, a pink-skinned alien in a jumpsuit, became a madly popular character for the space age. He fought his rival, the miner Quake, in a series of commercials. Like Captain Crunch, another Quaker product from this decade, the cereals were essentially sweetened corn and oat dough formulated into different shapes. Quake was discontinued, but the saucer-shaped Quisp has been resuscitated periodically, and memorabilia remains in demand. 1970s. The heyday of fruit-flavored and monster cereals filled children's bowls with Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Boo Berry, General Mills products that still enjoy cult-like followings. Post's Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles were competitors in a decade when the Federal Trade Commission began taking a harder look at how cereal companies marketed their products to children, and when granola began its commercial comeback. 1980s. Co-branding cereal was the game. Mr. T had his own, made from sweetened corn and oats and shaped like a T. In advertisements, he pitied the fool who didn't eat it. Donkey Kong, Smurfberry Crunch, and Cabbage Patch Kids cereals also appeared, along with the California Raisins, the claymation quartet that promoted Post-Raisin Bran. 1990s. Puffins, a molasses-sweetened corn cereal with roots in a small Northern California natural foods bakery, debuted as organic food went mainstream, and parents increasingly searched out more healthful cereals. Gorilla Munch, an organic cereal that is part of Nature's Path EnviroKids line, soon followed. 2000s. The battle of the virtuous cereals was on. Kellogg's acquired the Kashi line, just one sign of the exploding market for natural and organic foods. These cereals also became targets for consumers demanding more transparency in labeling and more products without genetically modified or artificial ingredients. The current decade has been all about labeling. Cereals started being promoted as free of genetically modified organisms and gluten, or as containing specific nutrients. Even cereals like Dora the Explorer started selling themselves as whole grain. And that is the end of this article on the history of cereal. A short history of cereal. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed getting to hear a little bit about breakfast cereal. I didn't read this beforehand, and I actually learned a few things that I didn't know, so it was really interesting for me, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you again really soon.